Take a moment to look at your hand. Study the texture, the veins beneath the surface, and specifically, the hue of your skin. Whether you are pale enough to be mistaken for a bleached sheet of parchment or deep enough to absorb the midday sun like a high-efficiency solar panel, that specific shade did not appear by chance. It is the result of one of the longest, most convoluted, and spectacularly dramatic transformations in the history of terrestrial life. What makes it truly fascinating is that this was no random occurrence. It wasn't a biological fluke or a cosmic roll of the dice. Your skin color is, quite literally, a survival manifesto, the record of a slow-motion biological negotiation between your ancestors and the sun. And for the record, the sun was absolutely not playing fair. It was a brutal, relentless taskmaster. The story involves vitamin D, the specter of cancer, the fragility of folate, the vast plains of Africa, the biting chill of the ice ages, and ancient farmers who inadvertently rewired their own evolution. All of this was orchestrated by a surprisingly indifferent star sitting 93 million miles away, a nuclear furnace that caused all this chaos and has absolutely no regrets about it. If you were to trace your family tree back through the mists of time, every single one of your ancestors, regardless of your current nationality or heritage, possessed dark skin. Every single one. This wasn't a majority or a mere trend. It was a universal trait. Roughly 300,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens times first emerged in the sun-drenched landscapes of Africa, the entire species was dark-skinned. There were no fair-complexioned populations anywhere on the planet. The very concept of light skin didn't exist in the human lexicon. Consider that for a moment. Every historical figure you've read about, every ancient civilization, every mythological hero, and every artist who painted on cave walls originated from a single founding population that looked nothing like a vast portion of modern humanity. Somewhere along the timeline, a profound shift occurred, a change so deeply etched into our DNA that it reshaped the physical appearance of entire populations across every continent over tens of thousands of years. To understand why this happened, we must first stop treating skin as mere packaging. Most people view their skin as a biological carrier bag, a convenient wrapping to keep their organs from spilling out while they walk around arguing with strangers on the internet. In reality, your skin is your largest organ, performing approximately 47 different tasks simultaneously, most of which you never acknowledge or appreciate. One of its most vital roles is serving as a fortress against ultraviolet UV radiation. UV light is the invisible energy the sun hurls at Earth with relentless ferocity. It is not your friend. It is a molecular wrecking ball that breaks chemical bonds, shatters DNA strands, and triggers mutations in your cells. If these mutations accumulate in the wrong sequence over time, they manifest as cancer, specifically melanoma, one of the most aggressive and lethal malignancies known to medicine. This is where melanin enters the fray. Melanin is the pigment that provides skin with its color, but in a functional sense, it is a biological sunscreen. It is a natural, built-in, always-on UV filter. The more melanin your skin contains, the darker it appears, and the more effectively it prevents UV radiation from penetrating into the deeper layers of tissue where your precious DNA resides. Dark skin isn't just an aesthetic, it is a shield. In equatorial Africa, where our species began, the UV radiation is punishingly intense. Evolution selected for dark skin with ruthless efficiency. High melanin levels meant your DNA was protected, reducing the likelihood of cancer and ensuring you lived long enough to reproduce. Natural selection is, at its core, a cold and calculating optimization algorithm. It doesn't care about beauty or aesthetics. It only asks one question. Does this trait help you survive long enough to pass on your genes? In the African savanna, dark skin was a resounding yes. However, the plot thickens with a molecule called folate, or vitamin B9. While UV radiation attacks your DNA from the outside, it also destroys folate as it circulates in your bloodstream. Why does this matter? Because folate is the foundational fuel for embryonic development. It is essential for the formation of the neural tube, which eventually becomes the brain and spinal cord. If a pregnant woman's folate levels are decimated by UV exposure, the consequences are catastrophic. Neural tube defects, severe developmental abnormalities, or miscarriage. In a world without clothes or sunblock, light skin in the tropics was a reproductive death sentence. Thus, melanin served a dual purpose. It guarded against cancer, and it protected the next generation by shielding the folate in the blood. Dark skin wasn't just helpful, it was mandatory for the survival of the human race. So, if dark skin is this five-star biological superweapon, why did it ever change? Why did we lose our shields? The answer lies in one of the most elegant and brutal trade-offs in evolutionary history. Between 70,000 and 100,000 years ago, small groups of Homo sapiens began to drift out of Africa. This wasn't a grand, planned exodus. It was a slow, generational migration. As these populations moved further north into Europe and Asia, the environment underwent a fundamental shift. The sun became weaker. Of course, the sun remained its usual nuclear self, but at higher latitudes, its rays hit the Earth at a shallower angle, passing through more atmosphere. The UV radiation was filtered out. Days became shorter. Winters became long, dark, and overcast. Suddenly, the shield became a hindrance. The dark skin that was perfect for the African sun became a liability in the dim north. The problem wasn't cancer or folate anymore. The problem was vitamin D. Your skin is essentially a solar-powered factory. When UVB radiation hits a compound in your skin called 7-dehydrocholesterol, it synthesizes vitamin D. This molecule is non-negotiable for human life. It regulates the absorption of calcium and phosphorus. Without it, your bones cannot mineralize. In children, a lack of vitamin D leads to rickets, a horrific disease that softens the skeleton, bowing the legs and flattening the skull. In adult women, it causes osteomalacia, which can deform the pelvis. In a pre-industrial world, a deformed pelvis meant that childbirth was often impossible, leading to the death of both mother and child. Imagine a dark-skinned person in Northern Europe 40,000 years ago. Their melanin was so efficient at blocking UV that they couldn't produce enough vitamin D in the weak northern light. Their immune systems faltered, their bones grew brittle, and their populations dwindled. Evolution, the patient calculator, began to favor mutations that reduced melanin. Individuals with slightly lighter skin could absorb more of the scarce UV light, produce more vitamin D, and have healthier children. Over thousands of years, the average skin tone drifted lighter. It wasn't a choice. It was a desperate biological adaptation to avoid extinction. For a long time, we assumed this bleaching process happened slowly over hundreds of millennia. Modern DNA analysis has shattered that myth. We now know that early European hunter-gatherers remained dark-skinned for a surprisingly long time. Take Cheddar Man, who lived in Britain about 10,000 years ago. DNA shows he likely had dark to medium dark skin, dark curly hair, and strikingly blue eyes. This combination seems like a paradox today, but it was the norm then. The extreme fairness we associate with Northern Europeans today only spread widely in the last 6,000 to 8,000 years, a mere blink in the eye of evolutionary time. The catalyst for this rapid change? The Neolithic Revolution, the switch from hunting to farming. Hunter-gatherers had a varied diet rich in vitamin D from oily fish and organ meats. But farmers transitioned to a diet dominated by cereals like wheat and barley, which contain almost no vitamin D. Suddenly, humans became entirely dependent on their skin to produce the sunshine vitamin. The selection pressure for light skin went into overdrive. Combined with the high population density of farming villages, these light skin mutations spread like wildfire. It is also vital to note that skin color is not controlled by a single switch. It is a polygenic trait involving dozens of genes. Interestingly, East Asians and Europeans evolved light skin through different genetic pathways. This is a classic example of convergent evolution nature, finding the same solution, light skin, to the same problem, low UV twice, using different molecular tools. Even the most iconic, fair traits are recent. Blue eyes, for instance, can be traced back to a single ancestor who lived near the Black Sea roughly 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Before that individual, every human had brown eyes. Something we now use to categorize people into races is actually younger than the domestication of the horse or the building of Stonehenge. When you step back and look at the grand tapestry, you realize that skin color, the very thing that has defined history, justified wars, And built social hierarchies is nothing more than a biological calibration system. It is a dial, adjusted by your ancestors' proximity to the equator and their dietary habits. Light skin is not better or more evolved. In the tropics, it is a dangerous defect. Dark skin is not primitive. It is the original high-performance blueprint of our species. The deepest irony is that the same sun that forced us to build shields also forced us to tear them down. We have constructed entire civilizations based on prejudice over a vitamin D problem and a folate protection mechanism. Today, technology has decoupled our biology from the environment. We have supplements, sunblock, and global food networks, but the record of our journey remains written in our cells. Every shade of human skin is a correct answer to a question asked by a star. We are all just different versions of the same story, told in the language of light and shadow.